To order the meeting of the MAPS 3 Citizens Advisory Board of September 28, 2017. And we have a new lawyer with us today, Haley Rawson. How are you? Welcome. Do you agree with me that we have a quorum? Yes, I do. Good. Then we will call the meeting to order, and you've been furnished with copies of the minutes of our previous meeting of August the 24th. Are there additions or corrections to the minutes? It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes as presented. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The minutes are... I'm sorry? All right. Let the record show that Kim Lowe abstains. Otherwise, it was unanimous of those voting that we approve the minutes. Item 3, David, the revenue and expenditure report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your packet, you have the MAPS 3 revenue and expenditure report for the period ending August 31st, 2017. On the revenue side for the month, we have $9,323,116. For fiscal year of $18,628,893, and for total revenue of $765,737,288. On the expenditure side, we have for the month $8,713,536. Fiscal year $8,752,015, and $15 for a total of $325,470,339. Then you also have the budget and obligations report for the period ending September 11th, 2017. You can see the various things in there that we have. Well, it shows you the budget and the obligated amounts and the balances. So I can answer any questions you might have.
Michael Adams, have you reviewed this and want to give us any of your thoughts about it?
I have not reviewed it in detail, but I would recommend approval.
All right. Is there a second? All right. Is there further discussion? Bob?
Quick question, David. There are just minor variances in the monthly and fiscal year figures. Why would that be?
I'm sorry, Bob.
On the expenditure side for the month and for the fiscal year, there are just very minor variances in the numbers. Why would that be? I'm sorry. In the fiscal year under expenditures, a variance between the expenditures for the month and for the fiscal year.
Well, it has to do with the fiscal year just starting in July.
But is it 1 month into the fiscal year or 2 months?
You're right. I see what you're saying. It should be 2 months. Is that right? Is it 1 month? Lance,
well, it looks
our
like
business
it's clearly
manager.
1 month, but it should be 2 is Bob's point, I think.
Yeah.
Lance?
The reason for the discrepancy in those two amounts is that the report was not run directly on the end of the month. So what you're doing is you're picking up part of the next month, a few days of the next month. So there must have been some revenues that came in after the end of the month. We picked those up when we ran those reports. So it's one's a fiscal year to date, and the other one is just a monthly.
Okay, because if it were really just 1 month instead of 2, the numbers ought to be the same. Either that, or we had very few expenditures in that 1 month. Just a few thousand expenditures.
Yes, it's the expenditures, Lance. It's not the revenue. It's the expenditures he's talking about.
On the expenditure side.
And they're almost the same, and we've got 2 months into the year.
It depends on the day that you run the report. So if you would, the fiscal year to date, let's say you ran a report on the 4th of the month or the 5th of the month, and you got a revenue that came in on the 2nd day of the month, that revenue would be picked up in the fiscal year to date number. The month ends at the end of the month. So I think I don't have my report with me, but I think the column you're talking about is a little in excess of the monthly amount. Is that the case?
The fiscal year expenditures.
Yeah. Right. Expenditures.
Yeah.
And I think I said revenue. Did I say revenues?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Expenditures. So in the financial system, every time an expenditure clears in the financial system, it immediately goes into it starts updating the fiscal date year number.
Okay. Well, that would explain, I just noticed, for example, the fairgrounds and the streetcar transit numbers were identical for the month and for the fiscal year, but several other expenditure items, there were slightly greater amounts for fiscal year.
Not all the claims come in simultaneously.
Okay.
So, when we ran this report, and we caught a few days into the next month that constituted a fiscal year to date, there must have been some claims that were paid that showed up in that expenditure column.
Well, just the differences in dates the reports are on or the dates that the reports are effective would explain the difference.
Yeah, I mean, one column is just what happened in the month, and the other one is what happened fiscal year to date. So what you're getting is all of July, and you're getting a little bit of August in the fiscal year. And I don't know the exact date this was run, but I'm guessing that we normally run these a few days into August. It's because we want to make sure we have the July expenditures clear. So that's why the month column is a little bit lower than the fiscal year to date column.
We can get your report, Bob, and show you exactly where things come up.
I don't need that kind of detail. I was just curious because the report's dated August 31, which would suggest would be 2 months.
I agree. It seems misleading here, but we'll figure out what it is and get you.
Okay.
Well, I was wondering if we needed to issue a thank you, Lance, because if you look at the streetcar, we didn't spend any money in August on it. We've got all these guys here that I thought we were paying. But so many thanks. Many thanks for all your help. All right. Any other questions about it? All right. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the report as submitted. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The revenue and expenditure report and the budget report is approved. Item 4, David.
Item 4 is recommend joint resolution approving change order number 4 and amendment number 6, MAPS 3 Hudson Avenue Street Improvements. Increase of $60,974, project M3-P0048/PC-0479/WC-0895. This is a change order for some things that were needed out in the field, but there is 4 funding sources on this. If you look at the end of the memo where it says source of funds, you'll see that the Park Subcommittee approved this yesterday, and their amount is $5,338. The streetcar saw the item also, and their amount is $6,886. And then Public Works with the bond funds is paying $5,338. And then the Water Utilities Trust, because this included that water line that they wanted to upgrade as we were putting new paving on there, didn't want to cover up a 100-year-old water line, so they chose to replace their water line at the time. And they had some extra things they wanted to put in, which is what those swing ties are called. They have $43,412, which will be paid out of the Water Utility Trust. So the items are swing tie installation. That's when you want to connect one water line with another water line and not disrupt service. And then there was a driveway replacement. There were 2 driveway replacements in this change order. So as I said, this comes with the approval from the Park Subcommittee. The Streetcar Subcommittee saw it yesterday, and we're bringing it to you today.
Questions or discussion? Been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It's approved. Item 5, David.
Item 5 is recommend resolution approving change order number 2 and amendment number 3, MAPS 3 Phase 3, Project 1 sidewalk improvements, an increase $31,917.25, project M3-0W003. We're going to see a lot of change orders and amendments today because we have a lot of stuff under construction. So I don't want to continue to repeat myself, but these are things that come up in the field. No matter how much we try, there's things that just come up, mostly underground stuff, and then there's things that need to be taken care of just from a good steward of the land out there. So We have traffic signal conduit, loop wire, some more traffic signal, some 3-inch traffic signal conduit, some construction signage, and then quantity adjustments. I have the project managers make sure that they keep their quantities up to date as we go along so that we don't end up at the project and have a big bill there. So as we go along, we keep those up. So this comes with the approval from the Trails and Sidewalks Subcommittee.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve this change order. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The resolution's approved. Item 6, David.
Item 6 is recommend resolution awarding contract to MTZ Construction Incorporated, MAPS 3 Sidewalks Phase 4, Project 2 improvements. Base bid plus alternates 1 and 2, approving contract and bonds, $1,873,502.25, project M3-W004A. This is the last official, well, not official, but it's the last planned sidewalk project that we have, because we had the 4 phases and we broke them into 2 projects each. We still have some money left over from previous projects, so I will be coming to you in the coming weeks for additional sidewalk projects. But this is the last one that was planned in the various phases. So we're very happy that we were able to award the base bid and the alternates. MTZ has done several of our sidewalk projects and done a really good job. So this comes with the recommendation from the subcommittee.
Been moved and seconded that we approve this contract for the sidewalks. Is there further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Mr. Chairman,
Aye. Opposed, no.
You had a question?
I just
No,
have
I'm sorry.
one
Bob?
quick question. Alternates 1 and 2, are they just additional alignments?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right. Other questions? All right. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is approved. Congratulations, Sue. You guys are moving right along. Great job. Good job. Item 7.
Item 7 is recommend resolution approving change order number 7 and amendment number 9, MAPS 3 trail improvements. Phase 2, Project 1, an increase of $71,010.10, Project M3-T002A. The change order part of this project is time extension. It's at no cost, but it is just extending the time for the contractor because there was a lot of utilities that were uncovered and slowed them down. Then again, traffic signal wire replacement, manhole adjustment, water meter relocation, and irrigation system relocations. Pretty routine stuff, again, as we're out in the field building these things. And this also comes with the approval from the Trails and Sidewalks Subcommittee.
Been moved and seconded that we approve this resolution. Are there questions or further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is approved. Item 8, David.
Item 8 is recommend resolution approving amendment number 8, MAPS 3 trail improvements, Phase 2, Project 2, increase of $3,175.30, Project M3-T002. This is the Will Rogers Trail, and this is for quantity revisions to date, and it's for the $3,175.30. And again, this comes with the approval from the Trails and Sidewalks Subcommittee.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve this resolution. Further discussion or questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is adopted. Item 9, David.
Item 9 is recommend resolution approving amendment number 3, MAPS 3, Will Rogers Trail, Phase 2, Project 3, increase of $28,882. Project M3-T002B. This is the southern part of the Will Rogers Trail, the southern third. We wanted to add some bollards on the trail. The discussion with the subcommittee was that we will talk to our Parks and Rec department who does the maintenance and oversight after we complete this and look at doing signage in lieu of a lot of bollards. But we do need the bollards to help keep cars and vehicles, motorized vehicles, off of the trail. And then there's additional pavement replacement down by the trailhead at, and there is a typo here, this should be Southwest 5th Street, not Northwest at the trailhead, there's some significantly sloping paving that, as we worked in the field, found that we could really make it a better quality project if we were to just make some of these changes and not have quite as much slope in there. So this is what we've negotiated with the contractor as far as making the changes. Now, this price is already, it's an amendment, so it's already established. It's just additional quantities. So this also comes with the approval from the Trails and Sidewalks Subcommittee.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve this resolution. Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is adopted. Sue, before we leave the Trails and Sidewalks, do I understand there's been a date set for the ribbon cutting on the Will Rogers Trail? Have we heard?
There's a tentative date sitting out there. I'm not ready to actually announce that yet.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. It's in December sometime, and we're still looking at meeting a lot of people's schedules. So.
Okay, good. Well, it's being scheduled. Congratulations. It sounds like, yeah, they have checked with me. Okay. All right. Item 10, David.
Item 10 is recommend resolution approving change order number 15, MAPS 3, Senior Health and Wellness Center number 1, no increase, accepting the project and placing the maintenance bond into effect, project M3-H002. I think most of you have seen Wellness Center 1, the one at Northwest 116th and Rockwell. Very proud of how that turned out. Ryan Eshelman is here today to kind of give you a wrap-up summary of this project, so I'd like to invite him up.
Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you. Good to be with you all one final time on this project. It's an exciting milestone. A little bit anticlimactic since the facility's been in operation for about 6 months now, but I'll show a few images that you're familiar with and kind of give you a final look at the executed project. Of course, the original site plan showed how the facility was going to occupy the site on North Rockwell, and if you visit our friends with Google and others on the internet, you'll now see the actual facility represented. This is a photo taken late in construction, so you can see how the building occupies the corner of the property and the new parking. This is the rendering developed during design that we've seen many, many times, and if you pull into the facility now, this is the view that you see, and as an architect, I hesitate to say I'm always a little surprised. It looks exactly like I thought it was going to look like, so we're really pleased with the way the project turned out. Of course, inside the facility as well, the main lobby, lots of activity there. If you visit today, you'll see the cafe in operation, lots of folks reading and socializing, interacting, news and weather and other feeds on the television screens, and of course a crew of volunteers there at the check-in desk to welcome you, sign people up, direct people to activities. Pool has proven very popular, and of course we envisioned a daylit pool environment with our multifunction hybrid fitness pool for lap swimming and classes and all sorts of different uses. Of course, we now have the advantage of a fully executed mural in that space, which you can see on the end wall. One of two 1% for art projects that will be completed on this campus. Really dramatic, colorful mural that really livens up this space. And of course, the fitness components are very popular. This is the view of the fitness lobby, the social area outside of the fitness spaces during design, and as you can see, lots of great fitness equipment and heavy use in the gym, which we'll look at momentarily. As you recall, the gym, because of some budget restraints, had very limited interior finishes, fully functional, but did not have finished surfaces on the walls, and so as a part of the process, we upgraded those finishes. This was a rendering to depict what we intended for the gym. And again, this is the completed version with high impact resistant panels, low on the wall, sound absorbing panels, and some decorative wood panels up above that give the gym a finished appearance. We also were able to add a third pickleball court, restripe the floor, a third pickleball court. Pickleball has been in high demand, and so Jefferson shared a lot about the vocal community of pickleball players who want as much court space as they can get and utilize that throughout the week. We're bringing change order 15, the final change order, which is a zero-cost change order. It just represents 21 days of additional construction time, primarily related to the lead times associated with many of the materials that were used in the gym finish out that we just looked at. Here's a brief history of the change orders on this project, and as you will recall, we're in the fortuitous situation of not having to utilize a large percentage of the construction contingency on this project, so all of that money was reinvested into the project to upgrade elements, buy additional equipment, things that Healthy Living, the operator, requested that would enhance their operations and serve the citizens there. So this is the history of the finances on the project and the final date representing project completion. While I was gathering information for this, one of the things that we did, we've included photos of seniors, generic photos of seniors in our presentations in the past, and the MAPS office said, I think it'd be great if we had actual photos of folks using the facility. So the images that you've seen on these slides in particular are actually from the facility. That Jefferson shared those. He also gave me a few nuggets just kind of highlighting what's gone on there in the last 6 months. They have over 3,500 members, which are served by over 100 volunteers in addition to their paid staff. Over 100 social and wellness classes. As you recall, we have lots of multi-purpose and classroom space, art rooms. So there's over 100 classes every month that are occurring in those spaces. Every week there's 48 fitness classes, and that includes both in the water and in the gym and in the weight and aerobics areas. And over 30 social and education groups. That's everything from the travel club to reading groups, all sorts of groups that are meeting in that facility on a regular basis. So exciting to see a finished building, but even more exciting to see people using it and enjoying it. So that's really satisfying, and I welcome all of you to go out and visit if you haven't been out there. Jefferson did, to reinforce that, did send me this photo of a parking lot on a typical weekday, and you can see there are not a lot of open stalls, so they're making use of every space in that parking lot. And of course, we have the advantage of additional parking adjacent for those particularly busy mornings when there's lots of extra traffic. I mentioned the cafe is open. There's an operator with a pretty wide variety of offerings there in the lobby, and again, all sorts of classes. You can see an art class ongoing, all sorts of classes and educational opportunities, lifelong learning that's ongoing there at the Senior Center. So certainly welcome your questions. Enjoyed working with you all. Everyone at the MAPS office was tremendous on this project. The subcommittee was obviously a great resource, and the entire design team is really proud of being involved with this process. So we thank you for that opportunity and invite your questions about the center.
Ryan, one question. How does the 3,500 membership sign-ups in the first 6 months compare to what was projected?
I can't answer that definitively. I don't know those numbers, but from what I understand, it's several times on the order of magnitude larger, 2 to 3 times or more larger than what they expected 6 months in. So someone else that has more experience with those projections may know, but I think it's well beyond their hopes for where we would be 6 months in.
Michael Dover or Cecilia, I guess I was under the impression you had projected 700 members.
I was thinking 600, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So obviously, wildly surpassed, I think, anyone that goes out and see projections on where we would be. I know, quite frankly, I'm worried about we're already running out of space and reaching capacity.
Great.
We'd be happy to bring a change order to add on to the facility if that's...
Any other questions for Ryan?
I do. Ryan, on the early rendering of the exterior in here, we had outdoor signage, some fencing, landscaping and stuff that is not installed now. Did we cut that out, or?
There certainly were some items that were revised during design to deal with the budget. The sign in particular, there is signage as depicted. It's oriented slightly differently. One of the things that we discovered out there is a significant gas transmission line that runs in front of the property, so a lot of those elements had to be pushed back. The gas company was very, very specific about what they would allow in that easement, so the sign was one thing that was moved back. The fence was removed from the project for budget purposes, but we are implementing through the art, the 1% for art, an art screen that will take the place of that fence. It's not a security, it was never intended to be a security fence. It was really just to kind of separate the street right-of-way from the outdoor space to serve the facility. So Robbie Kimsel will be implementing that art program in 2018, I believe, to construct that component, design it, select artists. So it will be coming, but that process has not yet begun. But in terms of the landscaping and the other amenities, it looks a little bit different, and you can't see much of the landscaping off to the right, but most of what was depicted in that rendering we were able to execute. We weren't able to plant trees quite as big as we showed here, but hopefully over time that will mature.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Certainly.
Other questions?
Move for approval, or I guess the resolution is coming up.
Yeah, we need a approval for the change order, the final change order.
All right, have you moved that, Michael? Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that we approve this. And is the significance of this, if we approve it, the council approves it, then the maintenance bond goes into effect? Is that it, David?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Further discussion?
I was just going to say, and as far as the wellness subcommittee is concerned, we're done with this first project. So it's the Parks Department is the relationship with the wellness center now. So
Congratulations. This has been a rousing success, and so I offer my thanks for the great job that subcommittee has done, and Ryan and your team as well.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well,
Congratulations.
thank you very much. All right. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. We're willing to accept all the successes we can get, aren't we? All right. It's approved. Item 11, David.
Item 11 is recommend resolution approving change order number 8, MAPS 3 Senior Health and Wellness Center number 2, increase of $25,431, project M3-H003. This second wellness center is approximately 3 months from being complete, and there's some things here that we did at the first one that we feel like need to be done at the second one, such as the solar shades and then the shower tile revisions. It's only $613, but it revises the tile sizes to smaller tiles, therefore giving you better footing and grip in the shower areas, and that's something that we saw in the first one, so we want to change that. Then the pickleball striping. The pickleball has been amazingly successful at Wellness Center 1. They had us when we redid the floor up there with that renovation in the gym, that we added a third pickleball court. So this is to provide pickleball at the second Wellness Center, and then also the equipment. And then there were some shower seats that we had issue with at the first one, and we're changing those out now before we have those issues. So this comes with the recommendation of those that were present at the Senior Wellness Subcommittee.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution. Is there further discussion, or are there questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is approved. Item 13, David.
Item 12 is recommend joint resolution approving change order number 2.
Oh, that's the second one. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Let's do 12 then.
MAPS 3 Senior Health and Wellness Center number 2, West Parking Lot, increase of $5,640, project M3-H003B. So this is Wellness Center 2, which is down by Capitol Hill High School, and this is for the extra parking lot that we built there. It has an irrigation system, has a backflow preventer on it, but as kind of a belt and suspenders to keep from having freezing problems, they added heat tape on that, which is it's like an electric blanket putting on the pipes there, and we need to get power to that spot. So for $5,640, that will extend a power source to that point.
Been moved and seconded. We approve the resolution. Discussion? Questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is adopted. Item 13. David,
Yes, sir.
is this unlucky or just,
No, this is very lucky.
all right, very good.
13 is lucky.
Lucky 13 item.
As you've probably seen, there's a lot of construction going on right now with the streetcar. A lot of activity downtown between the maintenance facility and the actual rails. And I wanted to bring you an update today on what was going on with the construction of the main line, the construction of the cars, and the maintenance facility and those things. We have representatives from Jacobs Engineering here, specifically Doug Smith will start us off here.
Welcome, Doug.
Mr. Chairman, good morning. Board members, we have quite a few slides today, I think 80 in all, so we're going to turn them pretty fast. Feel free to stop us and ask a question in the middle of this thing, no problem. But in the interest of time, we'll move through them pretty quickly. So to start our update, we have our vehicles expert here, Bob Highfill, and so he's going to work you through the what's going on up in Brookville, Pennsylvania with the car construction.
Thanks. Good morning, everybody. This is a slide you've seen before. The cars are built in 3 different sections. There's an A cab, a B cab, and a center section where the people enter the doors. You'll see the numbers along the left-hand side of this exhibit. Those are the car numbers that Brookville put on the cars. So there's 6 cars across the axis. Going the x-axis, there's the different stages. So they do framing in 2 different steps, framing 1, framing 2. Then they put the skin on them. Then they water test them. Then they final assemble them. And their first cars, as you can see, the first 3 cars are done through that final assembly 1 section, and they're going into final assembly 2. The actual first car, I'll show you some details on later, is gone into testing already. So that's the status of the 6 vehicles in production. The 7th car doesn't get started until the end of the year. And so we'll show you some delivery slides. This is the status of vehicle 3, where they've actually joined the 3 sections together. The previous 2 cars, car 1 and car 2, have been joined and painted. They're going into the test mode now. I'll show you a slide on that in just a minute. Vehicle 4 is a little further back than 3. They're putting the cab interiors in and the flooring, as well as putting the doors in on the upper right-hand slide picture. Car 5 is a little bit behind that, where they're putting in the insulation and the wiring, and they're not, sections also haven't been joined yet. Car 6 is at the point where they've just skinned it. They haven't put it through water test yet. You can just see the flooring going down in the front. The first 2 cars have gone into the test mode now. Car 1 is all the way through the electrical testing, so all the wires throughout the car have been tested. They've been put through polarity and conductivity testing. They've done startup testing, and they're just now doing functional testing. There's about 100 functional tests they put the car through to make sure all the bits work on it. And the next thing they'll do is performance test it. They put it on their own test track, and right after that, near the end of October, they'll be ready to ship it. Car 2's right behind. The shipping and acceptance test procedures have been sent to our group. We're reviewing them, we've approved them, and then they implement them. The next big step for car 1 is what we call first article inspection. They'll go through the entire car, make sure it's specification compliant just before they ship it. First car gets here November 17th. Car 2 through 6 come about every 3 weeks after that. Of course, you got the holiday. There's a typo here. They actually end up all here by February 2018. And then I said the last car starts in the first year, shows up in July 18. Doug? Any questions on vehicles?
All right, so our maintenance facility is starting to look like a real building. There's the view looking in from Walker, and you can see how the parking lot's been placed. The exterior panels are 99% complete, and we're getting close to having the building dried in. You can see in the front also that limestone wall, which is designed to match up architecturally with the Union Station, is also mostly in place. So it's really starting to look like a building now. There's the view from the back showing the fire lane and the canopy coming over the south end, which is where 3 of the cars will be parked as the storage track. And there's also charging facilities there as well. This is the east end of the yard. This is where the rail comes in, and this is actually, instead of the embedded rail, which you see in the streets, this is actually a ballasted track where they put the ties in. So this is the base rock that goes in, and they'll be setting the ties and are actually doing that now, and then bringing that rail in, and kind of more like a normal railroad in this part of it. And there's some of the ties going in. That's one of the switches that goes out in the yard, and they'll be mounting that switch onto those ties and then working through those curves and everything that goes into the storage bays. There's our maintenance, our service and inspection bay, which includes the pit down beneath where they can get in and get under the cars, and of course the mezzanine level up above where they can access the roof. So that's the mezzanine level picture there. And one of the things we'll do when we get a car in later this year is drive that thing in there and make sure it all fits with the horizontal and vertical clearances for that mezzanine. So that's one of our first integrated tests that we have to confirm. There's that fire lane again from the east side showing that storage track and the wash bay going in there. And there's a couple of the, on the left there is the embedded track in our heavy maintenance position. And all of the embedded rail inside the building is now in place and fully completed and ready to be able to pull some cars in there and store them. There's a view of the mezzanine level. This is where the mechanic and the maintenance staff will hang out. This will be filled with workbenches and cabinets and tool storage where they'll be ready to get right there on the vehicles and do the maintenance. And this is just a summary of the change order item, which is on your subsequent agenda items. And just final adjustments as we get the building completed. There was a metal clip that we had to add in item 1 there to be able to add the insulated metal panels. And then another highlight is we added some additional columns to the outside of the building. And so anyway, sure we can answer any questions if you have any on the change order. The November 14th date is a date we negotiated with the contractor as an addition. Took care of some weather days, but also got us to a final completion date in mid-November, which fit in well with our vehicle delivery schedule, which Bob just described. So it all fits in well with the overall project. Moving on to mainline, the mainline schedule is still looking good. Our milestones are looking good. Our milestone to embed the track inside the building in September was completed and met, and that, again, fits in well with the completion of our building and the delivery of the vehicles. The next milestone is mid-October, where with the non-revenue track from the boulevard down to 7th Street, the overhead catenary system, the span wires, the rail that goes down the middle of Hudson, all that's going to be completed by mid-October, and then also all that rail that's in the yard that I showed you. That milestone is looking good. And then after that, in the March milestone, comes the Bricktown Loop becomes available for testing. So that allows us to take those vehicles that we've been delivered and start circulating them around and seeing how they work in the on and off wire mode. So lots of testing getting ready to start based on these milestones. And then the August and November dates for having everything wrapped up, the Midtown Loop and final completion are still looking good. So that's all on schedule for next year. This is the progress map, and as you can see by the green areas, a lot of the embedded rail in the Bricktown Loop is now in place. There are a few areas, such along Sheridan, you can see outside here, where they're getting that embedded rail in the final place. And that just leaves us with a few curves to place and some of the special track work and switches to put in to be able to finish out that complete loop. So you can see we're in good shape for meeting that March milestone, getting ahead of that. And also, as you know, from right outside here on Hudson, we're starting to embed rail heading north and going into the Midtown Loop. That's actually our first piece of embedded rail coming north into Midtown. The blue areas also represent utilities areas that we've cleared, and we're about 60% complete on utilities, which is a major victory in terms of reducing risk, both in terms of cost and schedule. So we're really glad to see those blue lines expand across the map. And another thing that's gone in is those OCS foundations, so the Hudson non-revenue track and also that Bricktown Loop. Those OCS foundations are in and ready to receive those poles, get those cantilevers up, and start hanging catenary wire. Again, all that will be happening between now and March. Here's an example of utilities construction, getting a water line sleeved and under the track slab before we get that slab in. So that's going on in Midtown. There's a picture of embedded rail going on in Sheridan, just down the street. Fill in with curb and gutter replacement and filling in some of the areas between the track slab and the adjacent curb lines. And, of course, platforms are being constructed. And if you go around Bricktown, you see several of those are in place with that 14-inch high curb and that tactile strip going in right there where the passengers load, and that's one that's just got poured. And, of course, the Hudson on-revenue track, that's looking north from the 7th Street area. In the foreground, that's where one of our power switches goes, where the vehicle comes in and selects its route to come into the maintenance facility. And then on both sides of the road, you see those new poles going up, which will hold the span wires and hold the catenary wire over that section of non-revenue track. That's actually a very important feature of this project, and the next presentation will mention this, but this non-revenue track between the maintenance facility and the Oklahoma City Boulevard is something unique to Oklahoma City streetcar and also unique nationally in terms of streetcar systems. There aren't very many streetcar projects that have a maintenance facility that's this far away from the main line, and that creates some unique opportunities for Oklahoma City streetcar, which our next presenters will talk about. There's a traction power substation. That's down by the maintenance facility. That is now set in place and being energized this week. And just an update on land acquisition. All of our property is in place except for one just north of 4th Street, which City Legal is expecting to have that completed by late October, which is just fine with the schedule we have for the delivery of that equipment. So looking good on land acquisition. And then we have the change order amendment. So without getting into a lot of detail on these, let me just say that utilities are a lot of what we're seeing in terms of changes. As you can see by the way we have the street torn up outside, most of the surprises that we find on this job are related to utilities. So you can see the first item there, major item on utilities, and everything else kind of follows with that, moving electrical junction boxes and fiber duct banks and storm sewer around. And then on the amendment items, the most significant thing here is item 20, which is a bid quantity adjustment. So really what we're doing, and David mentioned this on a previous project earlier, which we're anticipating the quantities that we need to complete the job. And if we look like we're going to run out, well, we're taking care of that problem now, and we're creating a new bucket of quantities to get us to the end of the job. So this just isn't a monthly thing, that number that you see there. That's a projection to the end of the job to basically replenish a quantity of something that we needed. And there's 4 or 5 items there, something like additional street restoration, that kind of thing. No adjustment in contract time. We reserved this for an outreach update, and Mike, would you want to provide that?
And Mr. Chairman, committee members, David, most of the time Kristen Torkelson would be giving this report, but she's at a regularly scheduled weekly meeting to discuss what's going to be going on for the next day and week and 4 weeks with respect to the streetcar. Kristen continues to meet with stakeholders along the construction route. Just to give you an idea, she updates a weekly presentation that she sends out by email, which shows all of the areas that are under construction. There's a map associated with each area. She sends out now 28 maps every week. That's how many different areas we're working on in the downtown area, which is great for the completion of the streetcar, but has caused a little bit of concern on the part of some people downtown, and we're working with everybody to try to get that done as quickly as we can. Kristen, other things she does is, for example, we've got a significant water line replacement and valve replacement going on Broadway that may take as many as 4 or 5 shutoffs to that area. Every time that happens, she calls somewhere between 35 and 60 people to advise them of when that's going to take place and how it's going to affect them. Those shutoffs, for the most part, have been scheduled from like 11 o'clock at night to 3 o'clock in the morning to try and accommodate the businesses that are open later on during it, that are open till 11 o'clock at night. One other thing quickly, some of you may be familiar with Railvolution, which is an annual conference, which is really the conference regarding streetcar, light rail, commuter rail. Kristen gave a presentation regarding the outreach program that we have developed here at that conference that was very well received. But she continues to be very busy. So, any questions? Thank you.
Mike, tell me, have people calmed down, or they're still angry, upset people about what's going on?
About what?
About the streetcar, what they're tearing up, the effect that all of this is having on their businesses and operations?
We get occasional issues, but the fact of the matter is that Kristen started this process, and the real key to this was that she started this process a year before we actually started construction. She has met with multiple times all of the building owners, the building tenants, anybody who's going to be directly and in some cases indirectly impacted by the streetcar construction. She's gotten to know all of those people. And every time there is an issue, Kristen has been able to defuse it with an explanation of why things may not have gone exactly the way they should have. Frankly, it's construction and things, and we're digging up, as Doug pointed out, a lot of it is old utilities. We're dealing with utilities that are in some cases 100 years old. They aren't, when you go in to add to or replace those, they don't always act the way you'd like for them to. So we have had some surprises. We have had some issues, but for the most part, we have been able to defuse those issues. We get complaints, but the fact of the matter is the number of complaints that we've got based on what we heard from other people at Railvolution is minuscule compared to what normally happens.
You know, I think one of the things that we provide is a single point of contact and a single person in a uniform manner. That the frustration comes from people when they've got an issue and they don't know who to call or can't get a hold of somebody, and that's our goal, is to make sure that everybody that potentially could be affected knows who to call and knows what to do, and they're not grasping at the contractor or the engineer or whatever. So that's been the goal, and I think that's helped tremendously.
And we get blamed for things that other people are doing. Kristen handles that pretty well, too. So.
I would add to that, too, that the construction crews are very helpful in accommodating to the city for events and things like that. They've tried to make sure that they weren't working in a particular area. If there was an event going on, they've shut down early and moved to other sections. So they've been very accommodating, too.
They have been. I appreciate you mentioning that. Thanks. Anything else?
Thank you, Michael.
Lastly, I'd like to update you on our testing and commissioning phase. So we're really getting into this phase with what's going on-site in Brookville. Bob Highfill mentioned some of the tests that are being reviewed and getting started. And then also we'll get into that on our maintenance facility and non-revenue track in the next couple of months. Our Bricktown Loop, which I already mentioned, all the functions out there. And then finally the Midtown Loop starting next summer and leading to opening. And really, this testing is all organized and reviewed by a series of committees, which includes a Safety and Security Certification Committee, which actually met yesterday morning. Well, they review certifiable elements lists and the test procedures, and it's a multi-agency community, including Embark, MAPS, a number of the consulting team working us through that. Then there's a Fire and Life Safety Operations Committee that includes police and fire, and we're starting to answer their questions about the entry to the power substations and the safety around the power wires, and what happens if there's an event or something happens with one of our vehicles. So we're getting them engaged in our process, all leading up to getting into operations. Integrated system testing means that we're going to take a streetcar that Brookville built, and we're going to put it on a main line that Herzog Stacy Woodbeck built, and then we're going to park it in a building that another contractor built. And so all that has to be integrated and make sure it fits together. There's a lot of testing related to those. And then finally, there's a Rail Activation Committee, which will meet this afternoon. It talks about how that all sequences together and what everyone's issues are. And it's a cast of thousands, as you know, and so making sure everything is on a schedule and everyone knows what happens next and smoking out all the issues in advance. So all those are now actively meeting and will continue to meet until we get to opening. That completes the update. Happy to answer any questions.
Bob?
I'm just curious, since the streetcar is new to us, once it's in place, do we have a pool of skilled maintenance workers who will know how to work on the streetcar? If not, where do we get them and how do we train them?
Sure. So there's been quite a bit of thought put into that, and Rick Gustafson is here. He could answer specific questions, but the answer in general is yes, they're going to be ready for it. The contract operator, Herzog Operations, is in place with Embark, and they have the operations contract set up to include all the maintenance mechanics, maintenance functions, and there's a staff of 35 or 40 people, 30 that they'll be bringing in. That includes the operators, the route supervisors, the mechanics. They're all in that group. So those people are all scheduled to be hired in, and really starting around next April, May, June, in that time frame, all those people will be coming under contract and coming online as part of our testing phase. So we hit opening day, everything is up and running, but yeah, it has been thought through.
Okay, thank you.
Doug, I wanted to add just a word of congratulations to everybody involved. I've heard great comments about how Kristen and the whole team handled the beatification of Father Rother. That they had 40,000 people in town for his trip to sainthood, and it was a real challenge for Kristen, I think, and others. And boy, it was. They handled it as well as it could be handled. And I've heard wonderful comments about it. Just wanted to pass that on to you. It was a real test with a lot of people from actually all around the world here for that big day in the Catholic Church that was downtown, and it was very well received.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. There are many events that we've already responded to, such as the couple of big concerts about a month ago.
Yes.
And then prior to that, dealing with Thunder games, and now we're getting ready for that season again. And so we're doing all we can to keep all these functions going and trying to keep our construction, working with that as much as possible. But it's a busy time for sure.
Well,
thank you.
Good job. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Doug. All right, David.
Item 14 is a presentation on autonomous vehicles for the MAPS 3 Transit Modern Streetcar Project. There's been interest in the autonomous vehicles and how that could be achieved, so we've commissioned a study, and Mark Dorn from AECOM is here today in conjunction with the Jacobs team to discuss that with you. So I'd like to turn it over to Mark.
Mark?
Thank you very much. Glad to be back. This was a really exciting opportunity for all of us on the team to conduct this study. We submitted our draft report for review in early August, and we're here to just review some of the contents of that report, including the status of the industry and some of the work and findings that we conducted. The objectives of the study were to understand the status of the AV and connected vehicle industry and how it might apply to an application of an autonomous streetcar operation in Oklahoma City. So it reviews the different requirements for the vehicle and wayside and what are the potential next steps for you. So I would like to first turn it over to our AV and connected vehicle expert is Veronica Cyranosin from AECOM.
Thank you, Mark. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm very pleased to be here this morning to do a quick presentation on our findings from the Autonomous and Connected Streetcar Feasibility Study. So first up is the state of the industry. While there's been a lot of press recently about autonomous vehicles, the history of automation in streetcars and rail is actually much longer. And so you can see from this diagram that the levels of automation go from the top at level number 1 with the driver controlling everything, all the way to the bottom grade of automation number 4, where there is no driver or operator on the vehicle and everything is autonomous. There is a very long history of automation in rail operations dating back to 1967. The first one was done in London. In 1983, you had unattended train operations in Paris, and this line since then has had no recorded safety incidents or fatalities. Looking here to the United States, we do have some level 2 automated systems. So if you're familiar with BART in the Bay Area, the operator sits in the cabin, announces stations, and opens and closes doors, but they're not actually driving the vehicle. We don't have any level 3 systems here in the United States, but there are some overseas and in London. And finally, the level 4 systems, which are the completely automated systems with no operator or driver in the system. You would be familiar with these if you've ridden any of the airport people movers. We do have several here in the United States, but mainly they are on completely dedicated right-of-ways. So while we do have a very long history of automation, there are also some more recent examples of taking the technology that's being developed for passenger vehicles and applying them to rail. So here you can see some current projects that are under development right now in Copenhagen and Dubai, looking at having mixed traffic operations and applying autonomous and connected vehicle technologies to enable better safety in those operations. As part of our study, we did look at recent case studies, and this one from France was very applicable to the feasibility study that we're conducting. So this is an Alstom train in France. It operates in mixed traffic conditions, and Alstom has partnered with a technology company, EasyMile, to retrofit the vehicle with connected and autonomous vehicle technologies. And they are currently testing it. They completed 6 months of testing, and when we talked to them, they were gearing up for the next phase of study. They tested it in a controlled depot environment, so no mixed traffic pedestrians or cyclists, but they did find that the autonomous technologies were able to accelerate, decelerate the train, and also detect any sort of collision or obstacles in the way of the train. The last current example is this one from China. It's a rubber tire operation, but it also incorporates the connected and autonomous vehicle technologies. So this would also operate in mixed traffic conditions and incorporate connected and autonomous vehicle technologies. So from a historical perspective, as well as current precedents, we see that there is incorporation of autonomous and connected vehicle technologies into rail. And so what we found was that there are examples out there and that this is feasible and ongoing. In terms of the regulatory context, we looked at both federal, state, and local regulations in terms of how this might impact our ability to apply these technologies to rail. Just a quick definition. I talked about autonomous vehicles. There are also connected vehicles. So US DOT defines these as having at least some aspect of the control of the vehicle be without driver input. For connected vehicles, there are several different levels. Vehicle to vehicle is when each vehicle is able to speak to another. Vehicle to infrastructure would enable the vehicle to speak to other aspects of the right-of-way. So, for example, lighting or signage, the vehicle would be able to read and interpret those. And then finally, the highest level of connected vehicle technology is vehicle to everything, where the vehicle would be able to speak to other vehicles, infrastructure, as well as other users of the right-of-way and recognize and communicate with those other users of the right-of-way. In terms of the federal guidance that's coming out, the federal government has been fairly active. We have the vehicle-to-vehicle communication guidelines, which will require all light-duty vehicles to have vehicle-to-vehicle technologies by 2023. So that means that if we were to apply these onto a streetcar, it would be able to talk to all of those newer vehicles that are coming online. The federal automated vehicle policy, actually since we put these slides together, has been updated. So one was released in September of last year. In September of this year, US DOT released Automated Driving Systems version 2.0, and essentially what this document does is provide policy guidelines to states, but it also clarifies the role of the federal government as opposed to the states. The federal government has also released vehicle-to-infrastructure communication guidelines, and basically what this does is define what counts as vehicle-to-infrastructure communication that federal grant money could apply to. And we see, although some of these were adopted under the previous administration, Secretary Chao has expressed support for continuing to kind of innovate and lead at the federal level. At the state regulatory context, this one has also been updated since we put these slides together. As I mentioned, the regulatory environment is moving fairly quickly. So since we put this slide together, it's actually now 21 states that have passed legislation, plus Washington, D.C., and this is showing 3 states with executive orders, and since this was done, there are actually now 4 states that have done executive orders. You'll see that Oklahoma is not one of the states with enacted legislation, but in terms of what we did looking at other states that are doing pilot projects, what we found is that the lack of enacted legislation was not necessarily a barrier to moving forward with a pilot project and testing. And one additional thing, since we put these slides together, also earlier this month, the House unanimously passed the Self-Drive Act, and essentially that would exempt certain vehicles from federal motor vehicle safety standards so that you could have additional testing and deployment of autonomous vehicles. So while there are no regulations currently in Oklahoma to support these, we found that this wasn't necessarily a barrier to moving forward with a pilot project. We also, as part of our study, did industry interviews. We talked to the 2 major universities here, Oklahoma State University and University of Oklahoma, and it was really exciting to hear that they are currently doing a lot of research in this area. University of Oklahoma actually has a little autonomous golf cart that they use to take alumni around campus and to give tours, so they're very active in there. And OSU also has a very active program, and both of the universities expressed interest in supporting through research or having professors provide guidance or even providing student interns to an autonomous streetcar study. We also talked to other transit and public agencies who are implementing pilots to garner lessons learned and best practices from them. And finally, and potentially most importantly, we talked to a lot of technology vendors to see if the technologies that they were developing could apply to a rail system. And so what we learned from these is that there's tremendous interest and support from academia and the technology companies, and that the technologies that are currently being developed for vehicles can be applied to streetcar. And finally, we looked at some of the system requirements and technologies that are being developed. I'll categorize these into kind of sensing technologies, seeing technologies, and learning and thinking technologies. So the first are the sensing technologies, including geolocation, which if you walk around using Google Maps on your cell phone and you see your little blue dot moving around, very similar to that. So it's basically a technology that enables the vehicle to know where it is in space. LiDAR is like radar, except it uses light to detect obstacles in the right-of-way. The seeing technologies, cameras, is basically the eyes of the vehicle, enabling it to recognize other vehicles, but also other users of the right-of-way. And then finally, the thinking technologies. Machine learning is what enables the camera to know that a car is a car and a person is a person and a stoplight is a stoplight. So in terms of those technologies, what we found was that there are applicable technologies that can enable safer and more efficient operation of the streetcar. And I'll turn it back to Mark to speak a little bit about some of the wayside requirements.
Some of the wayside requirements are basically some enhanced GPS systems that would be able to communicate to the vehicle, and also traffic signal controllers, but it would help through a method called dead reckoning to be very precise in where that vehicle is, and that would assist with how it berths against with streetcar stops and whatnot. It communicates through an antenna on a vehicle. This technology already exists and is being applied with several BRT projects across the country. As far as the vehicle requirements, we had Bob Highfield do a review of all the functions that the operator performs, and so as you can imagine, it's a long list of functions and will be very complex for a retrofit. But really, why would one do an autonomous streetcar vehicle or operation? We think with the technology that is emerging that, as Veronica mentioned, that there will be significant benefits to safety and for the overall operations and reliability. So just as a very rudimentary example, one issue with streetcars as they roll down is people who have parked on the side of the street sometimes encroach in the path of that streetcar, and the autonomous streetcar would be able to recognize if there is a fouling of the track, and which would interrupt the operation automatically and wouldn't rely on the judgment of that operator. We think one big benefit is that it's very possible to make a much more enhanced experience for the transit customer. And with that automated level 3 that Veronica was mentioning, where you would still have a person on board, that person, instead of driving the vehicle, could be much more inward focused and customer oriented. Of course, we would want to realize operational cost savings, which I'll review in a second. But at least initially, this would be a significant innovation and attraction. Already, I'm getting inquiries from the industry about this study. The study itself is already receiving a lot of attention. I've received inquiries from Brooklyn and from Columbus about what exactly is Oklahoma City looking at here. They're very excited to hear what you might proceed with. Concerns can probably be boiled down to the last bullet of that this whole industry is in its infancy, but it is coming, this transformation to the AV and connected vehicle world. As far as an operating scenario, what is the end zone? And we think it is at that automated level 3 where there may be a conductor, we were calling them ambassadors, or level 4 where you have a fully autonomous operation and vehicle. But that conductor, as I mentioned, could be more inward focused. They would provide that security and fare inspection and be trained to respond to any incidents. In the central control, that dispatcher would have a very similar function as a normal streetcar operation, but they would be trained as operators themselves in case there would be the need to come out and manually drive a streetcar. This was a discussion we will be putting into the final report about the actual cost reduction in operations. We feel that you could potentially realize between a 10 and 20% savings because of the reduction in the number of operators that would be achieved. This is the large, as you can imagine, the largest portion of the operation cost for a streetcar. But also they have that, under that conductor model, they would provide that security within the vehicle and the customer service and fare inspection. So there's other savings to be realized there. So the summary of our findings is that this is definitely possible. The autonomous trains are in development around the world, but it would be very complex, as you can imagine, to outfit the autonomous that brain that would drive the vehicle itself needs to be retrofitted to serve all those functions in the vehicle as we listed. And this would be the first in North America of such an application. So with that, that leads into our recommendations because there would be this benefit to the overall transit industry and, quite frankly, the transportation industry as those regulatory issues are resolved to approve automated vehicles as a whole. We think this could be a very important first step in helping the United States achieve that automated and connected vehicle environment that is coming. So what we're recommending is if you choose to move forward, of course you could do it on your own, but we really think that you should reach out to the U.S. DOT and propose a pilot project that they could help sponsor because of that benefit back to the whole transit industry and the transportation world. We think there could be a very compelling case or proposal to be made to help have U.S. DOT or Federal Transit Administration to help sponsor such an effort. We're suggesting it's a 3-year effort and that it would be truly a public and private partnership because there would be also that benefit to the private industry with transit operators and the equipment providers and the technology firms that we should start with an outreach to private industries to put a little skin in the game too because there is that benefit for all. And even potentially other transit agencies, these ones that are inquiring already about what's going on in Oklahoma City. So so the scope of a pilot project would, or the ultimate goal would be to achieve that automated level 3 or 4, and then through that implementation, we would want to understand completely what are those steps to be able to get through all the testing and the integrated testing, as Doug was mentioning, that's required anyways for operation of a streetcar. But there's a whole new level of effort and that testing that we need to understand in order to allow such an operation. Of course, we'd want to understand the full scope of the vehicle retrofit. We think there's a really unique opportunity that you have here with that 7th vehicle that is yet to start fabrication, that if we can work, and we've talked to Brookville, the supplier, and they would be interested in helping participate in this effort in order to retrofit the design before it starts fabrication. There could be some cost efficiencies in that manner. And as Doug mentioned, the unique opportunity we have is with the test track, which is along the west side of the new park. We have it's between a third and a half mile of track where it would be it's a more of a controlled environment, or very easy to make it a controlled environment for the safe testing of such an operation. So this is something that exists here that is like no other system. And so that testing and implementation would be a very incremental approach. We would start with a driver right behind, behind the control panel, just like a normal operation, and then step by step, increase the automation level, and then step by step increase the reach of that streetcar operation. We would probably save actual revenue operation, as things proceed. I guess we just don't want to get too far ahead of out too in front of our skis. But we think there should be, as part of the pilot project, a public outreach to understand and educate the public, understand their concerns, and educate the public of what's going on. But also, there might be a good opportunity to reach out to the other providers of in the tech world about what are the other opportunities that could be leveraged from this. Essentially, you're rolling out a big data collection unit, and maybe there's other applications that could be used from this such a device. For instance, you can monitor on-street parking locations and provide real-time information to other drivers on where parking is, just as an example. I mentioned the public-private partnership. We were, dubbing this the AV Streetcar Test Laboratory, for lack of a better term, but we thought it was kind of fun. The overall program, it's more or less is our best guess at this point would be about a $6 million effort. Yesterday, I think I incorrectly said $5 million at the subcommittee meeting, but that would come from contribution from all involved, including the private sector, and basically the early efforts would come in preparing an application to present to the U.S. DOT for that pilot project funding, and then the real work and funding would occur once that funding grant was secured from the U.S. DOT. And we think that funding grant would take between 6 and 9 months before the actual testing and retrofitting of the streetcar could begin. But in the meantime, the immediate next steps would be to prepare, start that discussions with the U.S. DOT and prepare that official proposal for a pilot project. We could help outreach to interested parties, including those providing the autonomous vehicle technology, and we've already talked to Brookville, and they are interested in other providers, and including, as I mentioned, other transit agencies who may also want to be a participant as well. So that concludes our presentation. I'd be glad to field any questions you may have.
I'd I'd like to thank you both for going through this as fast as you did. I know yesterday at the subcommittee meeting, it was a little over an hour and then a lot more detail, but very interesting. Thank you very much.
Welcome. It was a good practice for us.
I have a question. At AV level 3 or 4, is the ambassador on the streetcar able to remand control of the vehicle if there was some catastrophic event?
Yes, yes. In fact, we would think at least initially, those ambassadors or conductors would still be trained operators, and that the vehicle would be designed so a manual operation could override that autonomous operation at any time. So.
And you can have both, what we're doing here in Oklahoma City, what's planned now, you could have that kind of operator-driven cars running simultaneously with the automated.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. It would be vehicle by vehicle, and our pilot project is really talking about just the one vehicle, and understanding that this is this is a spare for your fleet that is would be needed. It could be overridden and converted to manual operation when those times are needed.
But as I recall, that last car is scheduled to be delivered July of next year, so that you'd have to go back and really retrofit it because the timing for all this, if a decision was made, is that correct?
Correct. That would be an important decision of I imagine there would be a delay in that delivery if that retrofit were to occur. That would be a choice.
We also have a unique situation right now, too, where that vehicle hasn't started construction. So it's a blank slate, and that would be perfect timing, if we could get it done in time.
Yeah, I don't think it would hurt your initial operations overall if that seventh vehicle was delayed in its delivery of what's planned. So.
Mark, while you're there, I want to ask Zane a question about the subcommittee. Are you all thinking about this as a wonderful, great project that the city ought to undertake, or are you thinking about this as something to be done within the framework of MAPS, within a MAPS budget? Or is this something that's extraneous to that, or inclusive, or what?
That's a good question, and I think initially we were thinking that it would be possible to maybe take some of the MAPS 3 streetcar committee, and that's why we went for the report. But I think this is clearly beyond just MAPS 3, and it would have to, I think, go further. And David, you could have to help me out with that. I don't think that MAPS 3 streetcar alone would be able to take up this full project.
I think he's right, and I think we still need to figure out how it would function within the city, and we're just getting started on this, so I really don't have an answer. We could pick it up, or Embark could do it, or a team effort. There's lots of different options.
David, I know, of course, it is early on, but is the council scheduled to hear a similar kind of presentation down the road?
Yes, sir. This is scheduled to be presented to council on the 10th.
Good. Okay,
Good.
Comment.
Yes, Susan.
I don't know if anybody on this Horseshoe has driven a new car, but I suggest you go drive a new car because you will, it'll just about blow your mind, all of the, it's almost autonomous things, safety-wise, that are in a new car. So this is coming. It's such an opportunity. I'm thrilled that we've done this study, and I hope it goes further.
Again, thank you for the opportunity.
Well, Mark, Veronica, thank you guys. This is really exciting and looks like an opportunity for us to do something that would be significant for the country. All right, thank you. All right, David, what's next?
Item 15 is recommend resolution approving change order number 7, MAPS 3 streetcar storage and maintenance facility, increase of $62,075, project M3-S006. As Doug went through in his presentation or in his update, this is a change order for the storage and maintenance facility. There's various things, the metal panel framing clips that needed to be added, guardrail, the columns at the canopy. There's roof ladder access, and then the pedestal supports for the eye wash station. So just various things that, as we go through construction, things that come up. There was not a quorum yesterday at the streetcar subcommittee, but those present did approve this, or in spirit.
All right. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution. Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It's approved. Item 16, David.
And item 16 is recommend resolution approving change order number 3 and amendment number 2, MAPS 3 modern streetcar mainline increase of $259,885.58, project M3-S007. Again, a lot of little things. The biggest part of this was the amendment with the quantities, and Doug briefly touched on that about getting up to speed with the quantities, but this is actually a consequence of being ahead a little bit, because what we'd originally planned was that the utilities would be right in front of the main line and wouldn't have to do a whole lot of patching in the streets because they'd be right behind them. Well, utilities have gone really well, and they're way out ahead of the main line. So we have to patch the streets back. We can't just throw rock in there or leave them open. So it's increased our quantities some, and that's what the majority of this is for. But anyway, I can answer any other questions you might have on any of these items.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution. Questions or discussions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It's approved. Item 17 is reserved for any new business. Is there new business to come before us? All right. The item 17 then is the Advisory Board Subcommittee reports. Is there any report that we haven't heard today that anyone wants to be heard about? Kim?
Just very quickly, if I may. Since the Scissortail Park had its unveiling and groundbreaking in June 29th, I wanted to make sure everybody knew that we actually have a social presence. So if you're interested in following the journey, please, at Scissortail Park on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. I'm excited to say that all the lower property park has been acquired. And yesterday I was presented with one of the first Scissortail Park mugs that you can buy in the gift shop at Myriad. And also look forward, there are some around the city meetings called Meet Your Park that the Myriad Garden's holding. The first one was on September 7th, and it was free to the public, but you had to reserve a seat, and within 24 hours the first one was totally booked, so well received by the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Bob, I wanted to mention that congratulations to you and the Fairgrounds Subcommittee. The State Fair just had its first year with the new great exposition facility, and it was a smashing hit. And I wanted to mention to all of you that you remember that we authorized some additional money to be spent for the video boards, and they not only were really wonderful to use to direct the crowd, but they also provided some great PR for us. They did use those boards with David and his staff, did a good job working with Tim and those to make sure it said to the taxpayers, this is a MAPS 3 project, and I don't think anyone that went to the fair would have missed that. So, and they had great crowds. So this is the first time it's been broadly used in terms of the state fair itself, and it was a big success. Anybody else?
We had a tour of the senior center. I don't know if anybody's mentioned that, but I attended it. It was quite impressive what they've got going on out there. So good to see progress moving along.
You bet. Coming up here in a very short order, there will be a big event out at the river as well. I'll just mention in Dee's absence that there's been a significant private fundraising effort for a naming opportunity for the Whitewater facility, and that event, to dedicate that, and I think they've raised about $6 million in private funds for the Whitewater facility, and that's going to be dedicated on October the 5th. And so welcome you all to come if you'd like to. And all right, that brings us then to item 20, comments by anyone else on the board have a comment? Staff, David?
No, sir.
Haley, anything you want to tell us before we go? All right. And this is the opportunity for any citizens that are here that would like to be heard at this meeting to do so. Seeing none, we'll move to item 21. Michael has moved that we adjourn, seconded by Kim. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.